What's up, guys? Sorry about that. So I'm back. Yesterday we had the debates, right? So I did promise that today we can talk about it because I wasn't going to stream during the debate because didn't want to get in issues with copyrighted material from CNN because the debate was being hosted by CNN and all the different broadcasts that were doing uh, a simulcast of the debate was by permission of CNN for them to do so. So I don't have those I don't have those sort of strings to pull. So I wasn't going to do it and risk that because again I don't want to risk getting monetization right on the cusp of receiving it. So don't need a copyright strike before I even get monetized. Um, but however, like I said, so I did a pre-debate conversation right beforehand, which was, just a little over 30 minutes long, 30, 40, 45 minutes long. And I said that today we can get into a post-debate chat and conversation about the uh, the debate afterwards, guys. So we can do that today. So if people are interested, let's talk about it. If not, I'll go fix some food or something. um, oh, and again, to address yesterday, people were having issues with some books in the room where I was streaming. Mind you, and I'm only gonna repeat this once today. I'm not gonna repeat myself ad nauseum. I'm not in my own home, so the things you see around me are not my things. Like that military plaque in the back of me, not mine, my grandfather's. The religious books that people saw in my previous live stream yesterday, not mine. So anyone who's seen any of the content that I've made know that I'm not religious. So I don't know why they even thought that that was my material on that bookshelf. So in any case, I'm only gonna address that once, and I've addressed it yesterday. So I won't be addressing it again. I'll just be ignoring people and timing them out and so forth. But yeah, let's talk about the debate, guys. I watched pretty much the whole thing. Started nodding off towards the end, but um, so did Biden. But no, so at least we can say he was present throughout the whole thing. Um, but most polls have declared Trump the winner of that debate. I mean, and even CNN themselves said that he won. So I don't think that would be controversial to say that Trump won that first debate. My only problem with that debate was that I still think RFK Jr. should have been included. I think he's the most viable of the third party candidates. And like I said, back in the '90s when they had uh, Ross Perot in the debates, it made it more lively. He was actually catching more attention than the Democratic and Republican candidates, and he had a good shot of winning until he elected to pull out of the presidential race back in the '90s. But for all we know, he could have won, or he could have upset the balance of the race if he had stayed in. Nigel L says there's not much to say about Biden's performance. The biggest takeaway is that Biden needs to be replaced. Let's see if the Dems have any backbone to do so. Nigel, they're not going to do it. They're not. If they haven't done so by now, they're not like. And I don't see any way the DNC would try to pull him in the 11th hour. All they're going to do is try to gaslight people into saying that we shouldn't care about his age because of his experience and supposedly how well he ran the country in the last 4 years, which is a bunch of canards if I've ever heard one. But they're gonna gaslight people saying his age doesn't matter and stuff like that. I mean, Judah said I used to be a diehard Democrat. After Joe Biden's presidency, I've switched parties. So I feel you. I was never a diehard Democrat, Judah, but I was a diehard progressive. But I've been an independent for like the last, I would say at least 12 years, if not longer. I would say probably I've been no, longer than that. Yeah, I've been an independent since at least 2008. But I've leaned left and been progressive up until like literally last year. And even now, I still consider myself a classical liberal. However, classical liberals now are seen on the right for whatever reasons. But I completely understand how you feel. Nigel says, yep, gaslighting and stupid tactics, while all Trump needs to do is present better. And presenting better against Biden is a layup at this point. Right. Eric says, I was left leaning until the COVID era. Again, I understand. Eric, yo, you guys, I completely understand. If anything, I'm happy I'm not the only one, for real. Because it seems like to me, and until I start talking to other people, including you guys and people, in real life as well, I realize I'm not the only one who's been pushed right of in politics because it's just insane. Because like I said, I was a progressive beforehand, and I was a huge Bernie supporter. And to be honest, if Bernie was still in the running, like if he wanted to run a third time, I was probably still support him. Uh, Bonnie says, I'm truly amazed anyone would consider voting for Biden. You can tell he's not all there. Like I said, I don't know, Bonnie. I don't think you were in the chat yesterday, but I was literally making jokes saying, I don't know if they're gonna give him some B12 shots, or like have a bunch of Monster Energy drinks at the podium for him or something. But like I said, at best, I can say at least he was cognitively present throughout the whole thing. But I can't say that all his responses were very coherent. So I don't know about that part. But yeah, at least I don't know. But Trump ate him up on that on the debate stage. Eric says, I'm not a conservative either, but I would be considered more right than left these days. Same here. Same here. Like I said, I'm a classical liberal, so I consider myself left, but I know, looking at the current political atmosphere, classical liberals are seen on the right nowadays. So be it. I'm not really, I really don't care which side I come across now, as long as I know my political ideals. Nigel says, it's to the point where Trump may even consider not going too hard on the victory for fear that they may actually replace him. I don't know about that one. Snide Snow Dot JPG says, "Here's my question for you. There's no, I didn't see a question. You just said it's not trauma. I didn't get a question. Anyway, Judah says, I've seen a lot of switching parties for both sides. Do you think that the two parties are switching? No, I think that political ideology is constantly shifting. So sometimes things become more extreme on one end and less so on the other, and vice versa. So the center, the political center is a nebulous place because it's always shifting. So, the country was more conservative like 30 years ago, then it shifted left. So people who might have been considered moderates now or would be conservatives now what might be been considered the far left now is almost like center of left now. So things are constantly shifting. But I wouldn't say the parties have switched. Eric says I'm leaning more into my Christian faith than a political party. I have no allegiance to either party, and I'm more concerned about policies than politicians. Yeah, because you're an informed voter. Informed voters care more about policy than politicians. So that makes sense. Nigel says the political center is filled with opportunists. Yeah. Remember the Clintons, their whole concept of triangulation? So that's definitely a thing. And another thing I like the debate, I don't like the way they ask questions. And then some of these were like really good questions. They should have like stayed on for a longer time, but they would just stay on it for like 2 minutes and then move on to the next thing. And I get it. They wanted to cover everything within that time frame, but some things should have been stayed on for a longer time. Like they gave the question about to Biden why he's losing the black vote, and then they just glossed over it. That should have been expounded on, or I thought they would have spent. I'm actually surprised they didn't spend more time talking to Trump about the convictions and stuff like that, but they just moved on with that too. Like some of the stuff they should have spent more time on. Maybe in the second or other debates they will. So, and I normally haven't said anything about this, but I'm gonna say it this time. Y'all stop that free Palestine shit. Palestine hasn't been a sovereign nation since ancient times. At this point, saying Palestinian is just a political identity. It's not a nation. It hasn't been since ancient times. And on top of that, before Gaza was incorporated into Israel, it was part of Egypt. Egypt lost it because they kept fighting wars with Israel when they were established, and their fault. On top of that, Israel hasn't occupied Gaza since, what was it, the 2000, I don't know, was it 11, 2009, something like that? Cut it out, that bullshit. I would know when Israel was established. But guess what, Rami? Israel existed 1500, no, excuse me, 1300 years before Palestine did. 1300 years before Palestine did. So stop, you can't use history to claim Palestine because it's always going to work against you. You guys always claim that bullshit. I never say nothing in these chats, but I'm going to go ahead and be a savage today because I don't care. So Israel existed 1300 years before Palestine was established. And after Palestine was established, then what happened? A little nation called the Roman Empire. Then what happened after the Roman Empire? I don't know, the Ottoman Turks and all those other countries. And by the time that Israel became a nation, Palestine still wasn't a sovereign nation before then. You were a colony of the British Empire before Israel was established as a modern nation. So stop saying free Palestine. You haven't been a fucking nation since ancient times. You're just using it as a political identity. You said, where was Jesus born? I don't care. I don't even think he really existed. I'm an atheist. So go somewhere else. If you're not dropping a Cash App, we're not talking about Palestine. It hasn't existed since ancient times. Since ancient times. And even in ancient times, Israel existed before it did. 1300 years before Palestine existed. 1,300 years before it existed. Then Palestine became a province of the Roman Empire, then the Ottoman Empire, then the British Empire. The Gaza Strip was part of Egypt. Egypt lost it in their third war. Third, not first, not second, their third war against Israel. They lost it. In the fourth war, they tried to take it back, and they lost. So go somewhere else with people who don't know Middle Eastern history. What about the 33,000 bodies? Well, how about this? If they don't want people making war on them, how about they stop making war on Israel? How about you not attack music festivals where a bunch of people are just hanging out, chilling? How about that? How about they give back the hostages? Personally, I would be on some mafioso type stuff. If you kidnap my family and friends, I will blow up every single freaking thing until you gave back my family and friends. They still have those hostages from that music festival back in October. And on top of that, Hamas used to be a charitable organization that was a wing of the Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt, a political group, which was given free reign by Israel and even given financial funding until they were radicalized by Iran. And then they launched not one, not two, not three, but three infantadas within Israel back in the 80s and the 90s? Yeah. Don't don't sucker punch someone and then get mad when they when they knock you out. How about that? And you can't even defend what you're saying, so now you try to say something racist. Mind you, I didn't even block you yet, just so people can see how stupid you sound. And I'm purposefully letting this be tangential because I'm tired of hearing you guys say free Palestine on my chats. Y'all come into every streaming platform, social media, ranting about this dumb shit. Tell these so-called Palestinians, which isn't a fucking country anymore, hasn't been for thousands of years, but people use it as a political identity. Tell them give back those hostages from that music festival from last year. Then maybe people will stop warring against them. How about Hamas stop siding with Hezbollah and stop hiding and stop being supported by Iran, making war against Israel? How about that? Mind you, I was Muslim as a kid, so you're not going to try that card with me. Like my name is literally Aman. So so that's an aside. He can't say anything else because he has nothing else to say. Most of those Palestinian arguments only work against people who are ignorant against history of the Middle East. That's not going to work with me. They keep trying to say free Palestine, a country that hasn't existed since ancient times. The last time it existed was as a province of the Roman Empire. Anyway, we're getting back to the topic du jour. I just wanted to say something because I usually let it slide when people put those free Palestine things, but I decided to go in on it, and you notice he shut up because he doesn't have any rational arguments. So then he tried to get racist. So anyway, now I just says the thing is though, even if they are yet to achieve the independence of sovereignty, isn't it still worth them achieving at some point? No nation should be under the thumb or control of another. Yes and no. Again, you have the Palestinian Authority, right, in the West Bank. Guess who stopped the Palestinian Authority from electing their own government? Give you a hint. It wasn't Israel. The Palestinian Authority themselves didn't elect a government because they knew that if they did, the citizens would most likely elect Hamas or a similar organization to also be ahead of their government, the way the people in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, elected Hamas back in the late 2000s. So the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank has withheld a democratically elected government within their borders because they are afraid that they're going to elect a another terrorist organization the way the people of the Gaza Strip did. How's that Israel's fault? And there have been talks about the a two-state solution for a long time. We almost achieved one back in, I would say, the 90s under the Clinton administration. There was a right-wing Israeli organization, I think, that stymied that. So you have problems on both ends, don't get me wrong. But again, no one, the reason why there's an occupation between Gaza, why I keep mispronouncing that, sorry guys, the Gaza Strip and Israel, is because you have Hamas running the Gaza Strip. Do you really want a terrorist organization freely being able to move into your country? No. So yeah, they're gonna put borders up. We're talking the same thing here with in the Mexican border, like putting borders up so we can stop allowing criminals and operatives of our foreign adversaries to freely get across our borders. You think they should do no less? I mean, you really did we forget all the intercontinental ballistic missiles that Iran launched at them several months ago? But it's only because of the Israel dome, that security measure they had that prevented those things from utterly blowing them up. They should control their borders. They're surrounded on all sides by enemies. Like when Israel was first established, the very year it was established, every country in that region warred against them. Every country. And it wasn't not once, but 4 wars. 4. Followed by 3 infantadas. So, I think they have a right to protect their borders. So that's all I'll say about that. Biden says seems Trump was given more hard hitting questions than Biden. I think his response to the January 6th question was well done. No, I mean they did hit. Like I said, they hit Biden with a few hard questions, but then they didn't expand on them. Like I said, they They asked him a really good question. They was like, "What do you say about you losing these black voters?" And they just kind of glossed over it. That should have been expounded on. And a lot of people got mad at Trump when he also did his response to that as well. Because I heard people saying, "Why did he say black jobs and all this sort of stuff?" And when everyone knew exactly what he meant, that illegal immigrants are coming into black communities and stealing and taking away jobs and resources. We knew what he meant. Like I said, they should allow them to explore those questions longer than they did. That 2 minute format was kind of lame to me. Don, you need to stop watching random stuff on YouTube if you're seeing disturbing stuff like that. Plus, you can report it. There's a button on here that allows you to report content on here that's abusive. Like I don't get some of you guys watching weird shit online. Like no one says you have to watch it. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that wasn't even in America. Eric says, I think America needs to focus more on our domestic issues than stuff overseas. Yeah, I agree. Bonnie says, Eric, unfortunately, we have too many lobbyists stuffing our politicians' pockets. That's true, too, unfortunately. Don says, what does that little person, Hezbollah, have to do with Palestine? Eric says, we really need to make lobbying illegal. That was one of the big mistakes, making it legal. They're not, because lobbying was actually something that was anticipated and encouraged in the founding of the country. Like, if you read some of the Federalist Papers, I forget which of the founding fathers talked about it specifically, but he was saying that he actually thought it was a good thing that um, you will have people that can represent special party interests um, in government to make it more representative to the actual will of the people. However, I don't think they foresaw it in some of the corrupt ways that it's done today. But I know that um, special interest has always been something that has been anticipated by the founding fathers and encouraged. So crazy mood to name Ice Cube says, I love when Kanye was asked about the conflict and he said, I don't know enough to comment on that because I'm working on it, working on art. That's fine unless you're running for president, then you should know what you're talking about. But that's why no one took him seriously when he was running for office. L says anti-Semitism will never go away. This is a blip on the radar of Jewish persecution. Uh, Eric says the fact that borders are a contentious issue never made sense to me. Our homes have dividing lines that are fenced so we can maintain and use the land and also protect ourselves. Well, and then it was a very American concept at the time of private. Well, not American. I mean, I guess particularly like Western European idea that was brought to America, which was the the ideal of private property, which extends, to not just home ownership, but to our borders and all that sort of stuff, which was a contentious issue when it came to like the Indian Wars for like, for like 200 years of America's early history. Eric says, this is why I do not support anyone who fringes on the right for someone to defend themselves and their property. H says the fact that some borders are contentious lines that aren't fenced, so it had never made sense to me. So, uh, Eric says Joe Rogan should host and moderate the debates. So I said that 2 days ago, and then one of the guys who comes on the channel sometimes, Kelly, he's an alright guy, but he has his political, um, his political beliefs, and he thinks that Joe Rogan's an idiot, so he shouldn't host a debate. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. Like, I think he would have a good platform in which to get the debate out, especially to younger people, because that's a lot of people, a lot of younger people saying, "I'm not watching that. I don't want to see two elderly old men fuss at each other." And I get it. I get that. Even some of my family and friends, like I sort of caught the pulse of them saying similar things as well, saying like, "Well, I wasn't going to watch it, or I just watched it for a few minutes and then turned it off," stuff like that. So they, I think, you know, having people like Joe Rogan and Jon Stewart, maybe Charlie Kirk, all these sort of people do it, I think it would it would broaden the audience beyond people who are senior citizens. Eric says you can monitor a border without putting a fence. We have technology that can assist with that. True. Crazy Muda says Joe Rogan has absolutely no businesses doing that. He's not an important judge to moderate and host the debate. Too much bias. Not really. CNN doesn't have bias. They have bias too. And if anything, Joe Rogan doesn't show much bias on his show. Like, he'll invite people from both sides of an issue onto something. So, for instance, like when like Terrence Howard was saying all this pseudoscientific stuff, he didn't call out the man or question him on his knowledge of those issues. Instead, he brought on people in this scientific community who could answer Terrence Howard. People, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Keating, these sorts of folks. He's he's a pretty solid guy that could host a debate, I think. Again, you don't have to have any special bona fides to host a debate, other than having a platform to do so and having uh, name-worthy recognition. Nigel says at this point, for me, as an observer, it's just political theater, no substance. So don't expect the debate moderators to have an effective format. I think some of you guys expect too much out of a debate. Like, a debate is not. I don't think a debate is going to settle anything. Like, I think most people have already chosen whom they're going to vote for, or if they decide they're not going to vote at all. Like, I don't think the the people who are the undecided voters are the minority at this point. A pimp butterfly says greetings from England. What's up? Al says when it comes down to it, we need to know your position and hold you to it. That's politics, baby boy. I don't know whom you're referring to. Pat King says Joe Biden looked really bad last night. Yeah, that's pretty much what a lot of people said. That, I mean, most people thought he lost the debate or that he was pretty weak. Nigel says I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan either, but he does allow his guests the space to make and land their points. He would have been okay hosting the debate to me. Exactly, like I said, he does not hold strong positions on his podcast. He lets people voice their views, whether he agrees with them or not. That kind of sets him up as someone who would be a good moderator for a debate. Don, well, you're not American, Don, so you wouldn't be able to vote here at all anyway. You're not a citizen. Harris says Joe Biden going crazy, saying that he answered all the questions like it's a big achievement. Yeah, like that's the that's the minimum expectation. He's supposed to answer all the questions, right? You don't get a cookie for that. That shows how low the bar was set. That at least he could answer all the questions, even though some of his answers were incoherent. I don't get your fascination with Donald Glover. That's kind of weird, Don, but okay. Over here, we don't allow just random idiots to, no diss to Donald Glover, but he's a musician and actor. There's been actors who've become presidents before, like, Ronald Reagan, but still, he was a governor of California first. How your political debate thing works feels very reality TV to me. It is. Yeah, you're right. It is, and that's how CNN wanted it. They wanted it to be like a. If you looked at the advertisements for it, they promoted it like it was a pro wrestling match. There's going to be more debates, guys. That was just the first one. Usually, there's probably going to be like two, three other ones, and then when Trump finally selects a VP, there's going to be a VP debate too between Harris and whoever Trump decides to be his VP. He should come to Guyana and overthrow the government. Yeah, that's not how we do things here. Like, that's sort of a banana republic type government. I really don't think you are informed on how American politics works. No offense. In no way affiliated says, isn't it funny that they took the fact check input away from moderators after the Russian dossier was proven false and the Hunter laptop was validated? Trump did mention he didn't mention the fact check thing. I don't think, but he mentioned the whole Hunter laptop and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, maybe they might do that in a different debate, but yeah, I don't like the format the way it was run here. And Eric hit the nail on the head right here. He says political debates were always theater, even in the early days of our nation. These guys would fight each other all the time. Yeah, that's what. Remember, Eric, I think you were in that live stream before when I was talking about, like, if you looked at how dirty politics was in the 1800s, and people think things are uncivil now. Things were way worse back then. The way they carried on, like I said, if you look at how uh, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson pilloried each other. Like, it was horrible, and these two were like close friends before they ran against each other. So, Elle says Jake and Dana are solid journalists. They have never been disingenuous. Who said they were disingenuous? So even if you think Joe lost the debate, he didn't lie and he talked straight, unlike the former president. So I don't know why you put loss in scare quote because CNN themselves said he lost the debate. So you're cherry picking things already. And then you said he didn't lie. He didn't? He didn't? You're begging a question on that one. um, when they asked him about when they asked him about the black vote, didn't sound very honest to me. Clinton Asmuth says blue all the way, guys. Eric says Abraham Lincoln used to physically fight some of his opponents. and it's like, so people are going to get into the honesty issue. All politicians lie, and they got into Trump's conviction. All presidents are criminals, and we can expound on that if you want, but they all lie. They're all criminals because it's built into our system that that the presidency is an exception to the law. Mercanoy, you spreading misinformation. You know there wasn't any third person. Jake McMahon says, hello, glad to see you doing a recap live. Yeah, I said, remember, Jake, I said I was going to do it 2 days ago. You were in the live stream. I told you I would. I always try to stick to what I say, unless, something unforeseen happens. Crazy Moon says he's right. Look at the Nixon Kennedy debates. That's pure political theater. Right. That actually changed. The Nixon Kennedy debates actually changed the course of political debates because that one was the first time it was televised. And so it was funny. So when people listened to the debates on the radio, people had said Nixon won, but people who had saw it on broadcasted on TV said Kennedy had won. And so that had kind of changed the course of the presidential debates ever since was the Nixon Kennedy debates because that was like the first one that was broadcasted live on TV from what I remember from history. Eric says exactly they were brawl all the time. Yeah. Jake McMahon said they both definitely lied. Come on. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what L is talking about. Like they both lied. And I'm a Trump supporter. I can admit he lied, but so did Biden. Some of the stuff he was saying was first of all was incoherent. Some of the stuff he was saying was just incoherent. And then yeah, he lied on some things. He did. Kyra says, I hope stuff changes in the U.S. for the better because it really does have a huge effect on other countries, including my own country. Yeah, it does. I mean, people look to America for political stability. That's what I was trying to explain to Don, the guy calling himself Don Cheeto Kyrus, was I was saying he doesn't understand that we expect more civil discourse in American politics because we sort of set the standard. Like even Britain doesn't set the standards. Like we laugh at the British parliamentary system at how they act over there, but we kind of hold ourselves to a higher standard, and I think by proxy, so does the rest of the world. So Eric says they both lied. No one is saying they weren't. Exactly. L says CNN is not me, and I'm not led by the media. You're slow to read your chat. If you kept it up, it would be less confusing for you. What did he lie about? First of all, I'm getting through all the comments. If you don't like the way I'm doing it, you can have, you can leave. Everyone knows from my live streams that I'm always going to be behind in the chat because I want to check each comment. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. Do you want me to speed read for your convenience? Are you dropping the Cash App? Don't tell me how to do my live stream unless you putting up a Cash App or Venmo or buy me a coffee. I think I'm being fair to everyone who drops a comment. And I never said you were CNN. What I was saying is that what you were saying is one-sided. And everyone got that in the chat room. Crazy Moody said, yeah, that's what Nixon said. It was a huge talking point. I don't even remember that being a talking point. I just remember what they were saying that, Nixon was a no diddy, but, Kennedy was a more attractive man and more charismatic. So when it came to like seeing the debates on TV, Kennedy outshined Nixon. But if it came to just like the discourse, then people who listened to the debate on the radio thought Nixon won back then. Jake says Biden did worse than I think I have ever seen in a general debate. He, eh, he could have done worse. Like he could have done worse. Eric said, what this debate really highlighted is how complacent we are with the downfall of our nation. We literally are heavily influenced by large corporations, and we have two senior citizens fighting for office. Well, the corporate duopoly is has been around for a long time. Just I think more people are just openly disenfranchised by it. This is, like I said, why in 2016 the two biggest candidates was Bernie and Trump, because they were both considered populist candidates at the time. Like they were both seen as anti-establishment, and both both parties saw them as a threat. Crazy Moody says, the last time I thought of a president as a strong, heroic leader, I was 8 years old. Who was that person for you then? Just curious. Eric says, we see the problems plain as day and just accept it and keep playing this game they want us to, like they want us to. So I think part of the problem is that we put too much emphasis on presidential politics instead of local. The local level dictates the higher levels because, a lot of the local politicians we elect end up being state electors. So that's one thing. Two, the things that happen on a local level are more likely to affect our lives than on the federal level. And I think if we elect better politicians on the local and state level, it will have a bottom up effect. So now you're being offensive, L. So now I'm gonna ban you from this thing. I'm bold because I have a Caesar haircut. This is a Caesar, not a Baldy. You're a fucking troll. And you're not gonna tell me how to run my live stream and you haven't dropped a cash app. So now you will never talk here on this platform again. Laura Wager says, fair is fair. Uh, David Sanchez says, I thought the debate would have been more entertaining. If I was okay. I mean, yeah, because we all thought something crazy was going to happen, but I think both candidates knew that they had to kind of tone it down. But I mean, we had some moments, like we had Trump just say that Biden was being incoherent. We had Biden calling Trump a sucker and a loser and stuff like that. But yeah, it wasn't as chaotic as we thought it was gonna be, right? It was just like sort of like grumpy old men. Mercanoy says, I didn't see the full debate, just clips, and Trump did did Trump do a signature Care Bear stare? What is the Care Bear? The Care Bear stare? I don't know. He was I don't know. Trump was just being Trump, but he stayed on point for the most part. I don't know. Like it, I think we were expecting it to be more chaotic than it actually was. So if you were expecting it to be more chaotic, Mercanoid, it wasn't. Marty says go Trump. Eric says I agree 1,000%. The focus has been more macro than micro. Local politics are much more important, have a immediate effect on our lives. It is true, and that's the problem is that but everyone focuses on the presidential election, which is the most inconsequential vote you can make, because it's not decided by the popular vote, but by the electoral vote, and people would be better off focusing on their local stuff like municipal, county, town, borough, state, stuff like that. Neko says, love you from the UK, brother. Thanks, Neko. Mary says, don't rob me. Yeah, I'm not your father. So, Gracie Muda says it was Reagan when I was 8. Okay, I found out from my parents what he did to black communities. Mm, if you're talking about like this, the whole thing about the CIA flooding the black communities with crack and all that and drugs, I, that might be a topic for a whole different live stream. But yeah, I can't get into it too much here. Kyra says the whole golf segment was crazy. Yeah, so I think a lot of people responded. They was like, they should actually do that. If they really want to get people tuned in, they should actually do that. Like both of them were bragging about like, no, my golf game is on point. They should actually do that. Vote of everyone who's still in the chat right now. I only see 4 people, but maybe it's not. By vote of hands, would you guys want them to do like a golf game against each other, and maybe at the same time like make it like a sort of a debate as well? 'Cause I think that would be like an awesome idea if they could get that together. Oh yeah, I know. I understood you put in scare quotes, crazy Muda, because it wasn't just him, right? No, I understood that. When I saw the scare quotes, I knew you didn't really buy that yourself. But yeah, same when I was a little kid, they black people had made um, Ronald Reagan seem like he was Satan himself, and that's sort of like what people are doing now with Trump. The good thing about being politically independent is that you can kind of see beyond political ideologies. Eric says, I wouldn't. It makes us look so stupid as a nation doing that. You talking about the golf thing, right? Um, no, so I would no. So I was just saying like they should just have like a gentlemanly like golf game. I didn't actually mean like it should be like I didn't mean like they should decide the election by a golf game. I was saying as those two being the top presidential candidates, they could actually host like a presidential golf game, and I think it would actually be, you know, uh, I don't want to say cathartic, but I think it would be less combative. That's that was my thought process on it. And then, like I said, it could also be like sort of a an informal town hall meeting sort of thing. Like they could answer questions while golfing. That's what I was thinking. Like I didn't think it should be like a form like it should be like a formal debate while they golf. I just thought it could be like something more civil that they do. That's what I was thinking. If they were younger, I would say like basketball or something, but those two are definitely not doing basketball. Eric says, yeah, if it's just to play the game, yes, but having it like a modern day duel. No. I didn't make it like a duel. I didn't mean it that way. I meant like as a way of like just them like saying, hey, I'm a golfer, and the other one like I'm a golfer. I'm like, all right, well, all right, let's golf. And like, but the difference is like, they were actually like, you know, show this live on TV. And then if they really wanted to, like I said, it could be like an informal town hall meeting where they could golf and also answer questions from the audience as well, like or like whoever, like I don't know, however they could set it up, like either a moderator or have like people, audience watching, and they are able to ask them questions. That's what I was thinking. I think that would be kind of cool, and it would get people more interested in this because there's so much political apathy right now. Like I said, a lot of people from it, like the discussions I saw people talking about earlier today was people saying they didn't even bother to watch because they weren't interested in either one of these candidates and hearing what they had to say. And I'm like, I understand the apathy, but since one of the other of these guys is going to be running the country, and with all the political tensions we have overseas and along our own border, people should have some sort of interest in what's going on, right? So, but yeah, I completely get what you're saying, Eric. And some comments I did see, guys. If I didn't comment on them, that's just because I didn't think it was worth it. Because, like I said, the last guy, L, I treated him like a civil person, and he decided to be an asshole, so he got banned. Eric says, "What I would love is if we can do a nationwide financial audit of federal, state, and local governments where they have to account for each penny they took from us via taxes." So there are already audits. The problem is that some of them aren't passing these audits, and there's no repercussions for the consequences. So since they started auditing the Pentagon, they failed every audit, but there's been no consequences. And it's like, where have these billions of dollars gone? Right? So um, most most of these agencies and the departments of what these agencies are made up of already do receive audits, but some of them act like they're above that. Like I said, the Defense Department, apparently they see themselves as above these federal audits. The problem with enforcement is the law enforcement, like the people who enforce it are the people who already run these things. So how are you going to do it? And then excuse me, then they were considering like bringing the Department of Justice under the office of the president himself. So I don't know how you can have an independent, how you can have a independent committee do law enforcement on the government. I don't know how that would work. Like, what would give them the authority to do that outside of the government itself, right? Supposedly the Department of Justice is outside of the the presidential administration, but that's obviously not true. So when people were complaining that they wanted to put the DOJ under the office of the president, I was like, it's not really a big difference from where it is now. Like, they still have an overwhelming influence on the DOJ, except now it would just be literally under the executive office of the president. Uh, Eric says maybe take a page out of Italy's playbook. So I'm not familiar with what they do. um, Jake says I'm probably not going to vote for president this time, but I watched it more for entertainment, to be honest. That's fair. I mean, that's fair. I mean, at least you're being honest. And like I said, a lot of people look. A lot of this, a lot of this election is going to be decided by people who just stay on the couch. That's the government's fault on that one. Eric says I'm joking, kind of. Were you talking about mafia? Because I was like, I know you're not talking about mafia, but yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think you can have an enforcement, a federal law enforcement outside of the federal government itself to oversee. I mean, the closest thing we have to that is the IRS. That's why everyone. That's why pretty much everyone hates the IRS, because the IRS is kind of independent of both of other parts of the federal government. That's why they have so much ire for the IRS, because no one real because usually there isn't much top down control of the IRS. Eric says, I have written in my grandpa for my vote in the past few elections. I might do it again this go around too. Like I said, if there was a third party candidate who I thought was either viable or I just really liked, I would probably vote for them. Like originally last year, I was saying I was going to vote for Cornel West, but he sort of fell out of favor, and that's sort of the Democrats' fault because they knew that he would take away black votes from Biden. So they there was the smear campaign that they start talking about him having like um, issues with like child support and all this other sort of stuff, which was completely irrelevant. But it was obviously someone from the DNC or hired by the DNC to smear that man. Because like that's what you came up with, like talking about his issues with like his personal relationships and stuff like that. Like, all right. Eric says the politician I like the most right now is Larry Elder. I would vote for him as president if he ran. He ran once before, right? Or was it just as a senator? I forgot what he ran for in the past. I'm sorry. Because back then, when I knew of him, was in my progressive days when I thought he was the bad guy. So, um, he ran against Gavin Newsom. Oh, for governor of California? Wait, that yo, California has some wild times. Remember when all the actors were running? Like, um, the dude, the actor who played Arnold from Different Strokes, and all these little actors were running for office in California back, it was like 20 years ago, something like that. Chris C says I like Larry Elder. Okay. Nigel says let's consider hypotheticals. Who would you who would you platform or suggest as viable candidates for either political party? Newsom for the Dems. For example, DeSantis is sick, but at least he represents the right's point of view. Who would I suggest? Like I wouldn't tell people who to vote for. Like I just wouldn't do that. Like I can tell you whom I support or whom I'm voting for, but I wouldn't tell someone that you should vote for whom I like. I'm not that narcissistic. I always say Eric says when Newsom got recalled, Elder was his opponent. Oh yeah, I do remember that. Okay, yeah, I remember that. Jake says I kind of like RFK, but he can't win. So he, well, he can have a spoiler effect though. Like I said, he could be the dark horse candidate. Um, and they're doing as much as possible to make it him not a viable third party candidate because obviously if he captures enough votes he can get matching campaign funds that he can run a decent campaign against Biden and Trump. And the people who are most against him running is Biden and the Democrats because he will most likely siphon off votes from him. And then, when Biden eventually loses, which we all know he will, we already know the people he's going to blame. He's going to blame third party candidates, particularly RFK Jr. They're going to blame people like Cornel West for taking the black vote, and then they're going to blame black men for not voting for Biden. And you know, there's going to be a whole bunch of blaming of people and the wailing and the gnashing of teeth when he loses, instead of, and they're always going to blame like third party candidates. If you don't want a third party candidate to capture votes, then set up a platform that's going to be more palatable to other voters, that they won't have to go to third party candidates. Like I said, they tried the same thing with Ralph Nader back in the day with Gore. Uh, Eric says, yeah, when Arnold Schwarzenegger ran, all the celebrities came out. Yeah, that was kind of fun though. Remember that all the celebrities came out. I was like, wait, hold up, Arnold's running. I was like, damn. And there was some other. I think did Willis also run? It was like Arnold. No, no, no. I think it was one of the Wayne brothers as well. It was like Arnold, one of the Wayne brothers, and some other people. But yeah, that was hilarious. Eric says, I kind of like RFK too. Is RFK a Democrat? No. So he started off as a Democrat, and then he left because the DNC kept saying they weren't going to allow him to run as a Democratic candidate against Biden. So he left and became an independent um, uh, candidate. The problem with being an independent candidate is that you can't ensure that you'll be on the ballot in all 50 states as an independent. Nigel says not to suggest who they should vote for, but who would represent either party ably, meaning without overt lies and with their mental faculties intact. I got you. In no way affiliates says Larry's campaign slogan should be "Respect your elder." That's clever. That's clever. I don't know. You see, you should have reached out to you should have reached out to his folks because they'd have been like, "That's kind of good." I mean, that's not a bad campaign slogan at all. Eric says, I remember seeing Gary Coleman running and just started laughing. Yeah, I was laughing too. Like it was like Gary Coleman, and I swear it was one of the Waynes brothers. I can't remember if it was Sean or Marlon Waynes, or was it or was it Damon? One of the three of them. Eric says, I think Vivek might be a better representation of the Republican Party than Trump. I don't know because remember the stuff he got with Ann Coulter when Ann Coulter says she was like, I respect you and I like, I agree with a lot of the stuff that you say, but just for the fact that you're Indian, I wouldn't vote for you. I think he would get a lot of that from other people too, even if they wouldn't admit it. I think Ann Coulter was just being honest about something that a lot of people would feel about him. Plus, I think he's also Hindu, although he hasn't explicitly said that he was. But I believe he's also Hindu, so he would have that going against him. But I know there are a lot of Republican Indians, actually, or conservative Indians. Nigel says, nah, Vivek had his chance to really do that, but he fumbled the ball badly. Too much Trump bootlicking. I don't think so. Like he didn't do well, so he knew to pull out the campaign. Plus he made his campaign made him more famous, so it kind of worked. And I think he, I think with his so-called bootlicking, he kind of ingratiated himself with Trump, and now it's being considered for his VP. So I think he might be on his list of possible VPs to be his running mate. Even if he doesn't make VP, I'm pretty sure Trump might consider him as part of his administration. Kara says, didn't Vivek want to raise the voting age? I don't remember. If I don't remember. I remember hearing something about that, but I don't know who said it. Maybe it was Vivek. I don't remember though. Eric says, that's a shame if that is why people would disqualify him for those reasons. But it is a shame, but it would be a factor. It would, like I said, a lot of people think like Ann Coulter. She's just more blunt about it. And to his credit, he was like, at least you're being honest. Like people were mad at him for not getting mad, for not being offended by her, but he was like, he valued her honesty. So Jake says, I disagree. I think religion will go against him, but not race. Hmm. It depends, like, what part of the country we're talking about. Like, in parts of America, we know they're not going to vote for that man. Now, do I think there could be a black Republican candidate? Oh, yeah. I definitely think so. Indian and Hindu? I don't know. One or the other is going to stymie him. Eric says Vivek is still young and has time to mature and develop himself more. True. And I mean, he's already a successful, like, entrepreneur. So Eric says, I agree with increasing the voting age. Do you think that would help, though? Because the thing is, right, um, the I don't know, like, more older people tend to vote more than younger people anyway, but that's not because younger people don't care about voting. It's because they're more apathetic about politics. And that kind of gets into what I was talking about the other day about how people who are more politically informed tend to be more apathetic about politics because they think that it's like kind of pointless to like be a part of a process where they have as less the same power as the moron across the street who doesn't know anything and is just simply voting for someone based on name or party. So I don't know if increasing the voting age would improve things. And if so, what age? 21, 25? I don't I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, um I think it's cool to have it at 18 because hey, if you can die for your country at 18, you should be able to vote. That's how I see it. Access too many young and impressionable people voting on things with emotion. I don't think so though, because I mean because the thing is, I think that's true of everyone. I can't say that just of young people. Like I said, look at all the old people who vote on stuff based on just emotions. If anything, like a lot of people are kind of apathetic about voting because only these senior citizens who want to come out and vote and like they're making decisions on people's lives when they've pretty much already lived their lives. So I mean, you could look at it from so that's the other way of looking at it is like maybe these older people shouldn't have so much voting power because they're voting on stuff that affects younger people's lives even though they've already lived theirs. So you can look at it from both ends, right? Nigel says, I think it's more relevant to have a ceiling on how old the presidential candidates can be. That, that, either that or there should be like some sort of mental competency requirement. Kara says, I think for the most part, the too many young and impressionable people voting is blown way out of proportion. Weren't the founding fathers literally around 18 to 22? Yeah, some of them. Um, but most of them were, well established in like their 30s and 40s, stuff like that. But there were people dying at 16 and 17 in wars. So I think however young you can be to fight for the country is however young you should be able to vote. I think that's a fair thing across the board. Eric says definitely a multivariable issue to approach, but I think voters need to have more skin in the game. True, which is also the reason why people say that women should be a part of the selective service. If you get to decide votes that can send people to their grave, then you should have some skin in the game. So that's why they should probably be a part of the selective service as well. Eric says the founding fathers also had businesses and were seasoned military veterans. 18 back then is way different than 18 now. Uh, Nigel says they do have a mental competency component, but as with most things, it's all smoke and mirrors. It can easily be subverted. No, there's no competency. So, which I think you're thinking about is the amendment. I forget which one because I don't want to misquote the Constitution. I don't know if it's the 25th or whichever, but there's an amendment that says, if a president is like um, you know seen to be mentally incompetent, then he can be you know removed from office because of that. But that has nothing to do with who can be a candidate. Like pretty much, you just have to be you know a natural born citizen and over 35 years old. I mean, shit, you can be a felon. so, so there's not most of the hurdles for becoming a president are not legal. They're mostly social. Like, you have to be. I mean, you have to be wealthy to run. Like, it's not a legal requirement, but it's a de facto requirement. So there's different things between actual de jure requirements for being president, which aren't very many, as compared to many de facto requirements. But mental competency isn't one of them. Now he says, I'm not talking within the Constitution. You're correct. I'm speaking on of these dementia tests that Trump always brags that he passes. I know he needs to stop doing that. It's funny. He's like, look, I passed that with flying colors. And we're like, you're supposed to pass that with flying colors. That's not a. He's like, you're not taking an IQ test. You're taking a test for dementia. You're supposed to pass that. So that's always funny because he was just talking about that in the debate yesterday too. So I mean, I'm pretty sure he gets that those are dementia tests and not like IQ tests. Like he's not joining Mensa, the Mensa Society, anytime soon for passing those tests because those are tests you're supposed to pass to show that you're mentally competent. Has Biden passed one though? We need to. I think he needs to take one. Even Jon Stewart today was like, people were talking about the in the debate, maybe these candidates had took some performance enhancing drugs. He was like, by all means, let them take performance enhancing drugs. He said, if take giving them performance enhancing drugs will make sure that they can make rational decisions and and judgments. Let them. And he said if you can't get them some sort of legal performance enhancing drugs, get them recreational ones. So, I don't know. Eric says, yeah, when he brags about passing, he always reminds me of the kid that from the movie Big Daddy when he says, I wipe my own butt. Oh yeah. Oh man, that's funny. I mean, I hope he gets those dementia tests. I'm not even sure. Not just his facts. John is usually on the nose with his political jokes. Yeah. But I think he was serious. He was like, man, let them take performance enhancing drugs. I don't care. He said if that makes them better, it makes them better at their job, then by all means. Shoot. I'm for it as long as it's not like, they all coked out or anything. I mean, we literally saw a president suffer from dementia while he was in office. Ronald Reagan in his second term. Nancy Reagan was making a lot of decisions for him behind the scenes because he wasn't able to do so. Eric says, "Who can be a good Democratic candidate?" I cannot think of anyone I like off the top of my head. Like I said, the only one I would have supported was Bernie, maybe Cornel West, but he never ran as a Democrat. He ran, or did he? I think he may have started off as a Democrat, but I know he went to the Reform Party, and the Reform Party was having issues with corruption, with some. um, political corruption or something. So he left the Reform Party and went to the Green Party. And then he left the Green Party because they wanted to re to renominate that woman who ran last time. I forgot her name, but she's kind of crazy. And then he became an independent candidate after that. Then there was also the other woman who's running as a Democrat. You don't even hear about her anymore. The one they always try to call crazy because she's into like crystals and all that sort of like fluffy stuff. I forgot her name, but she's still running as a Democrat. I wouldn't vote for her though. Um, Crazy Muda says, "Do you think a Rastafarian would make a good president?" If you mean like they're no, no. Uh, First of all, well, I don't know. Like, so I don't know. According to some of my West Indian friends, and I'm just quoting them. You guys can correct me if you want. Some of my West Indian friends said you can't be a real Rastafari and live in America anyway. They like they don't think like genuine Rastafari will live in America. Like you have to be in Jamaica or one of the Caribbean countries to be a genuine Rastafari. But putting that aside, I don't think so because I think they will put like some of their spiritual ideals above good policy. And I personally don't want anyone who's not sober making decisions that affect 330 million people, not to mention global and international issues. So, from my point of view, I don't think a Rastafari would make a good president. Eric says every Democrat I think are too extreme. I like some of what Bernie says, but he always goes back on his word and supports the establishment he preaches against. That yeah, and that a lot of his supporters have said that like they, but that's him being a good soldier. Really, like I can't fault him on that. Like the problem is they mistreat him so badly in the DNC, but he stays a good soldier to default. Like Hillary ran him out of the 2016 election, and he still was he still was a good soldier and backed her, and she still blamed him for losing, and to try to call his supporters extreme and all this sort of stuff. Then in 2020, he was in the lead up until that little buffoonish black senators Clyburn in South Carolina, whatever, backed Biden, and then all the other candidates dropped out just to support Biden, just to make sure that he beats Bernie. Then in the end, he still ended up backing Biden because he wanted to be a good Democratic soldier and back the front runner against Trump. So I don't know. Yeah, a lot of people said if you looked at the polls, you're right, Eric. A lot of the polls predicted that Bernie could have beat Trump in 2016. It would have been close, at least. It would have been very close. Uh, Sorry, let me get back here. Zed said, "What's up, man? What's up, Zed? I'm doing all right." Jake says, "I wish changing the healthcare system would be brought up again. It seems like there's no move for healthcare reform right now. To me, it is a huge issue. It is, but I mean, after Obama healthcare, people just act like this was a settled thing, and it's not." Mercano says, "Isn't the Annie's Food Company's bunny named after Bernie Sanders?" I don't know. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I don't know if it is. Isaiah says, "Have you seen the debate?" Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Today's whole topic is just about what people thought about the debate. Of Isaiah says thoughts on who should be our next president. Like I said, I'm not gonna tell people whom they should vote for, but like I said, I'm backing I'm backing the Don. And no way affiliate says a Rastafarian will run on the "Don't worry about a ting, don't worry about the ting" ticket. Yeah, that it would be funny though. It would be funny. There's one guy who runs, if he's still alive. I'm not even sure if he's still alive. Named LaRouche. It's actually he actually is his campaign is actually a political cult. Like we studied this literally in social psychology, and you'll see them on college campuses. LaRouche for president, so he runs every election. Again, I don't know if he's still alive, but if he is, I'm sure he's still running because it's actually his campaign is actually just a political cult. Like they even came into my biology lecture one day. I mean my anatomy and physiology lecture, and came onto the lecture, like actually came onto the lecture platform where the professor was doing her lecture and asked could they speak, and we were all like boo. And I wanted to go up to the professor and say, you know, Dr. Poku, that those people are a cult, but I didn't get a chance to talk to her about it. But yeah, so why not have a Rastafarian run? Because like I said, you have a whole bunch of quirky, weird people running for election each year. Like you have dozens of third-party candidates. You just don't hear of most of them. Like I said, LaRouche is one of them. They even made fun of the LaRouche political cult on The Simpsons once. Because I remember, I think when Homer went to college and he saw them, and he was like, LaRouche was right. It was hilarious. But yeah, you have a whole bunch of weirdos that run for third party as run as third party candidates. Crazy when it says I also notice whenever you see a Bernie Sanders ticket, it's a Subaru. I don't know why, but I do know about Subaru is that they have more lesbians than the other brand, and lesbians are from often from Vermont. I don't know if they're just from Vermont. They're from all over. I see them all over. Frosty says my guy was the topic today. Um, we're talking about the presidential debate from yesterday. Zay says I'm for Trump as well. I don't know much about politics, but since Biden's been in office, I've had no choice but to learn more and more every day. It's everywhere. Things are getting crazy. Yeah, so that's what I said. Like when the guy who I had to ban from the chat about half an hour ago was talking about all this crazy stuff, and he was saying, you know, at least Biden was being honest. I was like, no, he wasn't. He was lying too. He was asked some forthright questions, and he didn't. He wasn't honest about them. He wasn't honest about why he's losing the black vote. He wasn't honest about the economic performance of the country. So, yeah. And like I said, every poll taken about the debate yesterday said that Biden lost the debate. But even the people who support Biden say he lost the debate. What they said though was that we shouldn't base whom we vote for on the outcome of the debate. So at least they were being honest. So at least most people on both sides were being honest and said he lost. But well, except for that one clown that you know I had to ban off the platform. Then he had the nerve to tell me how I should run my live stream. I'm like, okay, then drop a cash app. Otherwise, you have no say. He's like a person who doesn't vote but wants to voice his political opinions. Mercanoy says, imagine an alternate timeline where Ross Perot, Purdue chicken looking ass won. Yeah, so at least you remember you know, Ross H. Perot. Like you remember the in the first time he ran back in '92, I believe, right? He almost won. He left. He left. He wasn't pushed out. He left on his own accord, and then he came back, and then people didn't take him seriously. But he got to debate with both Bill Clinton and George Bush, and a lot of people said Ross Perot had won that debate. He could have possibly have won. There is definitely an alternate timeline where he could have been president in '92. Says that some people are complete zombies. Francis, they're still trying to cover for him, but not cover for him as a crap show. Yeah, I mean, like I said, at least some of them are honest and say he lost the debate. But the ones who are still in support of Biden are just saying, well, even if he lost the debate, that shouldn't be the deciding factor on whom you vote for. And that's true because even if Trump lost the debate, I wouldn't have changed my mind about him either. So I think I think that was fair. Eric says CNN had a whole cope session after the debate. Yeah, so I don't watch those because you'll have after the debate you're gonna have all the pundits come on and give their opinions on it as if people can't make up their own minds on what they saw, right? So yeah, I definitely didn't watch that. As soon as it was over, I went to bed. He said it was like they just now figured out what everyone else has been seeing for the past 4 years. Right, exactly. Frosty says, I remember Ross as a kid. They should have had RFK there, in my opinion. I literally said the same thing. I mean, you weren't in the live stream yesterday or today, but earlier. Yeah, I said the same thing. I said I think he should have been included. He tried to get included, and CNN um, wouldn't allow it, probably because both candidates didn't want him to be a part of it. And to me, I think that was a problem. I hope in one of the other debates going forward, they're gonna allow him in one of them, or they might just do a separate debate platform for all the third party candidates. They could do that one as well, because I would like to see like Cornel West talk. I would like to see RFK Jr. talk. Um, the other guy who's running as a Democrat, I forgot his name. He sounded pretty reasonable. Then that quirky woman, I can't remember her name, but she's also running as a Democrat. She has no chance in hell of winning, but they all should get their chance to speak. Eric says, "Who is that picture of behind you?" Oh, my grandfather. It's a plaque of him from the Korean War. He was uh, enlisted June 3rd, 1950, 25th Infantry Division, 3rd Battalion, Combat Korea, in Baltimore, Maryland, 24th Regiment, I Company. So he was a war hero. Mercanoy says, "Remember, at least we don't have Hungary's president." Fair. I mean, there's some worse than that. Like that one particular country I don't mention on YouTube, unless I'm saying something good about them. Um, and North Korea, I can talk about them because no one gives a fuck. Kim Jong Un's crazy ass. Zan says, yeah, if CNN has thoughts on Biden's performance, then I think it's time to pass it to the next person. CNN's primarily blue, right? Yeah, they are. They're like, CNN's like center left. So I'll give them that. They're like center left, or I would say corporate left is probably the better explanation. Eric says, I wish we had Venezuela's president. That guy is something else. I don't think we want Venezuela's president. Francis says, yes, I want to see them all debate. Like I said, I think they probably will do like a debate just for all the third party candidates at some point. At least I hope. Because I will watch that one just to see like RFK and Cornel West speak and all these other lesser known candidates, because some people don't realize there's like a dozen third party candidates right now. Frosty says, very cool picture, thank you. Eric says, God bless your grandfather, appreciate it, thank you. He passed away when I was an infant, so I never got to meet him. But after the war, he became a firefighter, so he was also our first responder. So yeah. Crazy Moody says RFK is not taken seriously by a lot of people. Too many people clown on him after the worm and the brain thing. Yeah, so I haven't heard a lot of details about that, but I know a lot of people laugh about it. And because it became sort of like a joke, I didn't really delve into it too much. But before that, I think people were taking him seriously, and he would reach out to everyone. Like, I don't know if you guys remember me talking about the hip hop podcast Math Hoffa. He came onto the Math Hoffa podcast and talked about his views. He talked about being an environmental lawyer when he was younger in New York, and how he saw, and he even talked about like environmental racism, how they'll push like pollution and like toxic things like nuclear the nuclear facilities in poor underdeveloped communities. So he was pretty coherent if you get past his vocal problems. Like I know a lot of people don't like him. They come from a scientific background because of his belief in autism being caused by vaccines. So I know a lot of people checked out for that very reason. But aside from his quirky belief in autism being caused by vaccines and stuff like that, he's not a altogether unreasonable person. And dude's kind of buff as well too. It's kind of crazy. Crazy Moon says it's clearly not logical thinking, but the public is not logical. Yeah, never have been. Eric says, who is the president that was calling socialist a whole bunch of foul names? Was it Argentina, not Venezuela? He just got elected recently. Yeah, that wasn't Venezuela. Venezuela is a socialist country. So yeah, it wasn't Venezuela. You might be thinking of Argentina. Venezuela is a communist country, which is why they're so poor, because they had one of the biggest oil production in the world, which means they should be a wealthy nation, but because everything is socialist run there, it keeps the nation poor. Frosty says, rest in peace to your grandfather. Mine was a World War II veteran as well. He was my hero growing up. That's what's up. Thank you. Eric says, my grandfather was a World War II vet too, but he did not like the fact my mother is Hispanic. Wow. That sucks. He said my dad beat the brakes off him after he pulled his service revolver. What? He pulled his service revolver on you? Man. Damn. I'm sorry that happened to you, man. Like I said, I never met my maternal grandfather because, like I said, he died when I was an infant. My paternal grandfather, he just died 2 years ago from like dementia and some complications with COVID as well. Um, he served as well, but I don't know. I don't remember too much about his military record. And then he also served in the minor leagues baseball, so he was pretty cool. He always treated me well, but my older sister, he wouldn't acknowledge her as my father's kid because my father had her when he was 18, so he didn't believe that was my father's kid. So that was the only issue with him, was that, but he never mistreated me. My father, on the other hand, that's a whole different story. Like, it's so bad between he and I had to block him on Facebook. That's a topic for another day. Crazy movie named Ice Cube is Argentina. Yeah, that has to be Argentina because, like I said, Venezuela is a very socialist country. Frosty says, I like RFK except for his gun control position. I don't know what his gun control position is. Jake says, I like that he's for choice for vaccinations. If he's for choice, that's fine with me. what I was saying was like, so in the scientific community and in the skeptical community, he has been known as like being anti-vax, and he had this for like a long time. He had this he had propagated the myth about autism being caused by vaccines, and that's not how autism works. But otherwise, I don't have like strong feelings one way or the other against him. Crazy Muda says the president of Argentina was chasing people with a cordless chainsaw. What? What? Are you serious? This is one thing I've learned is to never take people on the internet serious. They most likely have nothing going for them. Most of the people online are negative. Yeah, people create personas online. Some of them use social media to take care of their like mental health issues when they should be seeing a professional, especially on TikTok. These Gen Z people, but that's a whole different topic. So they're addicted to drama and conflict, mentally sick people. Jake says I dated a woman from Venezuela and her parents were driven out for owning oil production equipment. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like they had one of the biggest oil productions in the world, but the country is still poor as a whole because they're still controlled by the country. Give me a second, guys. Yes. Okay. Uh, Eric says it's life, but I will not pass along the hurt he inflicted on us. And thank him for giving me that ideal. Yeah, that's fair. But that's still kind of that's crazy though. Pulling a revolver on you, I'd have been scared. Jake says it sounds pretty wild, but she said that Venezuela is starting to get better again. They are? Because it seemed like they just let out a bunch. Well, I don't know if this how true it is, but reportedly, a lot of those illegal migrants that came to the border were released out of Venezuelan prisons. Frosty says, "Much love, my fellow Americans, and if I don't chat with you before, then have a wonderful Fourth of July fireworks. Thank you." Yeah, I know I might do a live stream sometime on July 4th. Oh, and the wife still has like some content comment. I know I keep saying that, but like I said, the first thing she did got ruined because of the audio, and she just went on vacation last week. So I think she said she had a video that she made while she was in Banui, um, was a province in the Philippines, and she got to see like this elder Wang Ad who's like 107 years old and still does tattoos. She's from a village within that province. Um, she didn't get a tattoo. I told her don't get a tattoo, but she met her, and so should be good. Don't mind the phone, guys. uh, Jake says by eroding or crossing the blood-brain barrier. Yeah, so I mean, if you're talking about autism, so like, problem with autism is like a lot of um, mental illnesses, they now d- put it along a spectrum, and I think the sort of spectrum concept does a disservice because when you say these illnesses are within a spectrum, you're actually talking about several different diseases all being lumped under one umbrella term, like calling them all like autism, but they're all uh, diff- different diseases, but with overlap, with like similar symptoms or problems or whatever. But I mean, mental health illness runs in families, so we know it's all partly hereditary. That's one thing. Um, there are, certain teratogens that can cause mental health illnesses, but vaccines are not known as a teratogen. Then there's there's other issues, but yeah. Eric says, "Who do you think the next Democrat candidate will be for the next election?" I I have no idea. Maybe The Rock. I mean, I know The Rock has been kind of getting a feeler for whether he wants to run for president or not. Like even in his TV show on NBC, if you guys watched it, he was kind of predicting that he was going to run for president in the future, and he's talked about it before, but he didn't say for which party. I think he would run as a Democrat, not as a Republican. But if he ran as a Democrat, I don't think he would be like a. I can't say. I don't think he would be a left leaning Democrat. And like I said, I don't know. I get a sense from him he could be conservative. He just doesn't talk about it, which is very smart on his part. Very smart that he doesn't. He's not vocal about his political beliefs. Except that he back in 2020 he did actually back Biden. I think that was the first time he actually like voiced like his own political views. Eric says, I hear a lot of talk about Newsom being a possibility, and I hope that is not true. They were actually saying that, yeah, that's a possibility because they were saying he should replace Biden right now. I can tell you right now, I'm not voting for Gavin Newsom. I'm not. I don't know if I would vote for a Democrat again anyway. I really dislike how disingenuous the their party is. I mean, as a black person, I think they've they've taken the black vote uh, uh, not seriously. Like they just see it as a given that we're supposed to vote for them, and then white liberals will actually try to shame black people, particularly black men, for not voting Democrat. So that alone is kind of assuring me that I'm not voting Democrat anytime soon. Like I said, unless it's for Bernie, and he's getting too old to run at this point. I I can't see him running in what 2028. I don't think that's going to happen. That's going to be someone younger. People are predicting AOC might run, so that's another one. So Newsom, probably AOC, Alexandra Ocasio Cortez. Um, Maybe what's that guy, the gay dude, this part of the Biden administration? He might run for president again. Harris, she's probably try to run again. No one, Harris doesn't have a shot in hell, but she might run again. Frosty says Gavin Newsom is primed, Eric. He might run. Don says, speaking of Fourth of July, why are fireworks illegal in the U.S. when it's an American institution? Fireworks are not illegal here. It depends on the state. It's a state by state decision. There's no federal prohibition against fireworks. And even before they were in my state, Maryland, they're legal. And when they weren't legal in Maryland, they were still legal in D.C. Because I remember when I was a kid, my cousin used to always brag. He's like, "Yeah, we can have fireworks here." And so what a lot of people would do, they would have just drove right into D.C. from Maryland and bought some fireworks and brought them back home. But they're not illegal. Eric says because of fires. Like I said, it's a state by state issue. There's no in some states they're legal, some states they aren't. Ken was the same reason they took away the dislike button. But Eric says, but we blast them anyways. Unfortunately, it's very annoying in particular communities because in some places, the same places where they let off fireworks, they're also shooting guns on July the 4th. Like everyone knows in the hood that people shoot guns on July the 4th and on New Year's. So most people don't go outside if you live in the hood on those days. Like you either go somewhere nice, um, or you stay in the house because there's a bunch of idiots that will shoot guns, at nighttime. So Frosty said they're not illegal in every state, but yes, it's stupid laws that put forth by stupid people. Chris Gillespie says Kennedy. They're going to call him back. Hmm. Frosty says, "Do you ever think Tucker Carlson would ever run?" I don't. I don't. Would he be interested in running? That's the better question. Would he be interested in running? I mean, I can't speak for everyone's perspective, but for a lot of people, it's better just to be the power behind the throne than to actually run as an to run as an elected official. Like I said, I have a friend who told me, once he in a few years he's retiring from the government and he plans to run for office in I believe North Carolina. And he wants me a part to be a part of his campaign. And I'm flattered. I told him, well, if I'm still in the United States, I'll definitely consider it. But I don't plan on being in the United States when he retires. So, and I'm not coming back either. So if I'm already gone, I'm not coming back to be a part of his campaign. But um, I if I was part of his campaign, that's fine. But I wouldn't be like his running mate for like say like if he's running as I don't know if he's planning on running as governor or senator in North Carolina. But if he just wants me to have like an administrative position, that's fine. But I would never run for office. I'd rather be the person who's in the background than the elected than the person running for elected office. So I don't know if Tucker Carlson would feel the same way. Like he'd rather be like the power behind the throne as opposed to being the person actually running for office. Eric says I live in SoCal where a lot of dry brush during July and fires erupt all over the place, but it doesn't stop us. We still shoot them off and fire always happen. So I mean that's scary too. But like I said, for me, I don't like I said, being in Baltimore, people shoot guns. To me, that's scarier. But um, yeah, people are gonna do fireworks regardless whether it's legal or not. Kenwood 709 says Dwayne Johnson, he isn't even close to sharp enough to get into politics. But how many people aren't sharp, Kenwood? Like, like I said, look, if you don't believe me, look at all the people who are running as third party candidates right now. And look, there are definite people telling Dwayne Johnson to run. Like I said, he's been hinting that he's kind of interested in it. So that is a possibility. Like I said, even in his TV show that ended 2 years ago, he kind of hinted at the fact because in the show it shows him actually running for office and he loses it in the second season of the show. But he's like I said, he's had people ask him to run for office, and like I said, he's hinted at it in his TV show on NBC. I think he will probably run for office at some point. I mean, it seems like a joke until it isn't. People didn't think Arnold Schwarzenegger would really run for governor of California. Not only did he run, did he win, and his other acting friend, Jesse Ventura, also from Predator, ran for office and won. um, and who was the other person? Because it wasn't like three people from Predator that became elected officials, like Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura. No, I think it was just them. Because before Jesse Ventura was in that, I think he was pro wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura. No one would have ever thought those two guys would have like coming from like the '80s would have been elected officials. So We already had one. We already had one pro wrestler become a governor of a state. Who says that The Rock won't run? Remember, Ronald Reagan was a before he became governor of California and then president. He was an actor in Hollywood. Then there was Senator Frank. What's his name? You know, the guy, the comedian that used to be on Saturday Night Live. People didn't, you know, it seems like a joke until it isn't. People didn't think Trump was serious. They was like, come on, the guy did. Remember, 2016, everyone laughed their asses off, including other Republicans. Like Jeb Bush and all of them just knew he was a shoe-in to become the front runner of the president of the Republican presidential nomination. Everyone thought Trump was a joke, both on the left and the right, and so he wasn't. And they kept saying first they were saying he'll never become the front runner of the Republican primary. Then he wins the Republican primary. They was like, oh, he'll never beat Hillary Clinton, please. So you never know. The Dwayne the Rock Johnson we might be seeing him in 2028. Just saying, we don't know. Mercury says I would be caught dead. I wouldn't be caught dead voting for The Rock. What makes him a serious candidate? What makes any of them serious candidates? Like I said, people said the same thing about Trump. Like literally, people was like, this guy is just a. People said this guy's just a reality TV star, right? They said that about him, or he's only ran a real estate business. By the way, George Washington was a real estate mogul too. So, but anyway, uh, I don't know why they hit this comment, Frosty, but that was YouTube. So I'm gonna try to. It's saying error, but you said that's what I dislike about Democrats the most. It's saying error try again, so it might not let me show it, but I didn't do that. Eric says the policies many Democrats support are just too much for me. I get that. Chris says, do you think people vote against what they now know, what they know to be the right thing, but due to political party they vote against what's right? Yeah, people vote against their better interests all the time. Black people vote against their better interests. The black community is overwhelmingly a socially conservative community. However, they've been tricked into voting for very liberal and progressive Democratic candidates because they've been told that the Republicans are all evil and racist and that they'll put them back in slavery. Like, and then you have, and then on, and then you have people who are very, you have very wealthy people voting against their better interests, voting for things that would make them, pay more in taxes and all sorts of things. You have people vote against their better interests like all the time. So yeah, um, and like I said, I think that has to do with people being partisan. That's why I say That's why I choose to be politically independent because I don't think. Well, not that I don't think. I think it's just hard, very hard to think critically about political issues when when you're being told you have to subscribe to a particular ideology, and so you have to address every political issue within that within that Weltanschauung, right? That within that worldview. Jake says, laughing my ass off. We only get 70 and 80 year olds young voting these days. Running, I mean. Um, yeah, our candidates are way too old. Like the politicians in other countries seem make our you know make our Congress look like AARP. So I don't know. Maybe there should be term limits. Maybe there should be age limits. Um, I don't know about age limits, but there should be term limits. And when you're talking about the presidency, there should be a mental competency, but there isn't one. So I don't know. Mercanoy says they were legal in Maine for a month or two, but some Disney star blew his head up trying to set off one off his head. Disney star? Sound more like a jackass star. Man. Chris says, I think political loyalty sometimes fools our own selves. Yeah, like I said, people vote against their self interest all the time. Uh, Eric says, where I currently live, it's mostly Mexican and it goes down on 4th of July. Every kind of firework, people firing guns, music playing. Oh, so you get the same thing, people firing guns. I hate that because, like I said, because it's done at the same time as fireworks, you don't know who's shooting guns and who's like letting off fireworks. And the problem is some of these drunk people aren't just shooting up, which is still bad because the bullets come back down and will hit people. But some of them aren't even firing up; they're just firing across. Dangerous, and I mean, Baltimore already has a gun problem. Well, not a gun problem, a criminal problem, because Baltimore has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country, and it has not made the city one bit safer. Like I said, I don't know any other city in the United States that has a gun offender registry. And yes, I'm a gun offender registry, and it has not made the city one bit safe. Um, but yeah, I like I said, most folks they stay inside on July 4th or New Year's unless they go somewhere out of state, like they go to like D.C. or like up to New York or wherever. But most people I know in places like Philly and Baltimore and stuff like that, they do not go outside because it's dangerous. The music I wouldn't mind. Music is fine. I just don't want the firing of guns all week. Yeah, I remember. What was it? Was it around the pandemic when no one could go out? I don't know about in California, Eric, but like here, I think it was around the pandemic. A bunch of people were shooting off fireworks because of the pandemic. There weren't any events going on, so a lot of these places that sell fireworks, the ones that sell the what do you call the big fireworks, like the stuff for like the fireworks shows. A lot of them, to try to recoup their money, they were just selling it to regular people when that stuff isn't supposed to be sold to regular people. The large scale fireworks, and so that stuff was going off for like a month or two, and it was getting really disturbing. Chris is right power behind the throne. Like I'd rather pay LeBron James than be LeBron James. Definitely, because you would be richer, and you don't have to go through the pain of being on court every day. I mean, unless you love basketball, then that's fine. I love martial arts, so I would love to compete. But if I could be the person who actually owns the sports franchise, that would be even better, right? Chris says, yeah, sometimes we miss this. Sorry, I'm too deep and stopping the rock talk. No, 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 you good. Merton says, I want to run for a school council and just talk about conspiracies and call the other members names like that California guy, Steve Rocco. Frosty says, remember in school when they told us anyone could become president, The Rock could run and possibly win? Eric says that Dwayne is definitely a cultural presence. He might be successful too. Like I said, people shouldn't be so quick to dismiss him. Because like I said, people literally said the same about Trump. They was like, this guy's just a reality TV star. He's not a serious presidential candidate. What experience does he have? And here we are. 8 years later. So Chris says, but none would be a serious candidate. Yeah, I mean, Frosty says, R.I.P. Carl Weathers. Yeah. Chris says, The Rock wasn't a Navy SEAL either, like Jesse the Body. Was Jesse a SEAL though? I remember he was a pro wrestler. But again, like I said, you know, Arnold wasn't even an American citizen. Remember, people? Do you remember they were actually trying to say that they should amend the Constitution to allow him to run for president? Do you guys remember that when they said they should amend the U.S. Constitution to let Arnold Schwarzenegger run as president? And I was like, no, you don't want to amend the Constitution to let a foreign person run as an American president because what will be the long term implications? Like that might be cool for him, but it's going to allow foreign foreign powers to interfere with our country's politics, and that would be a very dangerous precedent to set. So I don't know. Jake says I'm out. Thanks for the chat. You're welcome. I'm about to go in a little bit myself to get something to eat. Uh, Chris says never. He said, but Trump before TV was in business. No. I understand that. Like I said, he was a real estate mogul before he was a reality TV star. But I'm saying that's how they dismissed him back then. Like no one took him seriously in 2016, and a lot of people said that the insults he got from Obama was what kind of encouraged him to run for office in the first place, and no one took him seriously. But running as a populist candidate made people outside of the establishment take him seriously. People within the political establishment, within the like we say the Washington Beltway, sometimes are far removed from the realities of what's going on in Middle America. And so, like I said, we shouldn't so easily dismiss The Rock because whereas most people think he has no business running for office and doesn't have the political acumen, he might appeal to average people, people who watch the WWE back in the day, watching WWE Raw and WWE SmackDown, stuff like that, and came to love him in his movies. Like he's one of the most bankable actors in Hollywood because he's so likable, and he's on Instagram. I think the biggest. I think he's the biggest presence on Instagram as well. He forced his way into the DC Comics films just through his own charisma and Hollywood affluence, and got a movie made that there was no interest in them in being made. He he can maneuver. So we'll see. We'll see in 2028 who runs as a Democratic candidate. I'm just saying I unlikely will vote for whoever will be the Democratic candidate at the time. So like I said, my last shot at them was Bernie, and I'm not voting for ALC. I don't like her anymore. She's been a bit of a chameleon. I don't really rock with her anymore. No pun intended. Zed says I have nothing against these groups, but right now Democrats, feminists, and masculinity of both sexes has a really bad reputation. How are we supposed to fix something like this? Uh, I don't know. But I'll tell you this. A lot of people said, before the fall of the Roman Empire, things became very progressive. People start caring about stupid stuff like traditional gender roles and dumb stuff like that before the fall of the Roman Empire. That might be a bit speculative. What I will say is that um, hard times can reintroduce traditional roles in society. That's so whether that be war or economic crises. we'll have to see. Frosty says Trump is all about business. Says why are people so adamant on stopping each other? I really can't understand how someone can hate others they don't know. Because of because all people are suffer from a part of human nature we call tribalism, or we call it in-group bias. We all have in-group biases, whether it's the in-group is something related to our ethnicity, our culture, our religion, our racial identity, our political identity, all these sorts of things. Like everyone suffers from in-group bias, so that's why. So Eric was like, yeah, that's what tribalism does. It is us versus them, and that's all people need to know to start hating them. I mean, they talk about this in Star Wars too. Not to be a nerd, but the dark side. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to the dark side. Frosty says, not gone above. I'm MAGA through and through. I think MAGA stands for America more than any group currently. Yes and no. I think that movement can take things way too far. Like I said, I'm not someone who really is serious when it comes to like I'll embrace candidates and I'll embrace policies, but I don't really embrace ideology so much. Like I said, the only political ideology I really embrace is classical liberalism. And I always explain this because I know when I say classical liberalism, I might trigger people and they think I'm talking about liberals as we know it today in America, which I'm not. I'm talking about classical European liberalism. Those basically those of the British empiricists like John Locke, John Stuart Mill, Thomas Hobbes, uh, George Berkeley, David Hume, Adam Smith, as well as people like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Immanuel Kant. That's who I'm referring to when I'm talking about classical liberalism, not American liberalism, which is completely different. Although there are some overlapping virtues, at least there used to be. That's the only ideology I embrace, but I don't really embrace any sort of political movements because, like before we had MAGA, we had things like the Tea Party. You guys remember the Tea Party back in the day? So Eric says there should be a term and age limit. 70 plus is too old. Like, I guess so. The age limit would make it easier, but I think the real issue is a mental competency, right? Because um, chronological age and mental age hit people differently. Like I said, you have people like Thomas Sowell, who at 90 years old is still publishing, was still publishing the books. He's 93 today and was still mentally acute enough to publish something at 90 years old, where another person who is at 90 might be completely bedridden, right? And I mean, you look at Trump and Biden. The difference to them is what, 3 years. I think what Trump just turned 79 and Biden is 81 and will be turning 82 in November or something like that. And there's a huge difference in how how well they both mentally function. So I'm not sure if it's an age limit so much as a mental competency, but failing short of having a mental competency evaluation, then I guess you could just use an age limit. So, but I don't know. Term limits, sure. Like I said, so like in the Philippines, you can only run for presidents once, but it's a 6 year term instead of a 4 year term. Um, I think if it was one term, it would be more productive because you wouldn't have people spending half of their time running for reelection when they should be when they should be actually enacting their policies and fulfilling campaign promises. Same thing with the Senate. So I don't know. Chris says bullets come back down, right? Yeah, unfortunately, they definitely come back down. Because the only way they wouldn't come down is if they were shot, um, powerfully enough to reach escape velocity. And yeah, most ballistic projectiles can't make escape velocity to go out, to make it past the stratosphere. Crazy Muda named Ice Cube says everybody hates Chris. Had a whole episode where they were preparing the house, fortifying it for New Year's with sandbags and rice. Man, that stuff is real. Um, you had some people like who live on the projects. They will put the kids in like bathtubs at nighttime to prevent them being accidentally shot at night. Thomas always mentioned that because that's really happened. Chris says, "Wait, you're in Baltimore? Hold up, I'm from Cleveland. We are not allowed to agree with each other." See, that's like political party. I get it because of yeah, I know, I get it, I get it. I mean, if it helps, I used to live in Illinois, not in Chicago, but like outside of Chicago, and like Cook County and Will County. Used to live like 10 minutes from like the Indiana border. So I was a Midwest kid too. Although I never went to Cleveland. Like only time we were in Ohio was like when we were driving, through the Ohio Turnpike to get to Illinois. Because it was like because it's like the longest stretch of the trip from Baltimore to Chicago, like driving because it was like a day drive, was getting through the Pennsylvania Turnpike and then the Ohio Turnpike. uh, Eric says they told us in SoCal to not go to gatherings and to stay inside and not fire off works and not yeah and not fireworks. That week was the wildest I have ever seen out here. There's a picture someone took with a drone showing it. Whoa, showing the sky above my city covered with fireworks. I'd rather be the guy. Chris says I'd rather be the guy teaching than owning my building. I teach out of. He said, yeah, he was a SEAL. Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, I didn't know whether he was or not, but yeah, that it makes sense. Chris says, yeah, that's California. Says maybe I'm just stressed out right now and just the thought of losing my dream career because a group of people don't like me is crazy. It can happen to anyone. So here's the thing, and I might do this in a separate live stream, but I mean, we literally just found out about Disney. So, it's been rumors for years that Disney has been shutting out straight white men. And it came out like a of a senior vice president of Disney has been caught on camera, telling someone we don't hire white males. He said, even though I'm a white male, he said we would not be. He said, I wouldn't be. We're not hiring, straight white men right now. And they called him out on it. And I think he's been. I think he temporarily stepped down from his position, and he removed his information off of LinkedIn. So yeah, there's definitely some some insanity when it comes to identity politics and all that sorts of stuff. But don't let that get you down. So Crazy Muda says I lost any respect for The Rock when he wouldn't open his giant property in Hawaii for people to take shelter and then beg for people to donate money to rebuild their homes. Absolutely. I talked about that before too in a previous video. Not a live stream, but in one of my long form videos. He like the thing that he and Oprah was running seemed a bit like a scam to me, asking people to donate to this thing, and both of them own property where those wildfires were. So it was like, yeah, it sounds a bit out of self-interest that they're like asking people to do this. And so he tried to fire back and say, well, that's not why, that he's genuinely concerned because he's from Hawaii himself and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, yeah, but the thing you were doing with Oprah was kind of sketchy. Like I said, if he ran for office, I'm not voting for him. Damn sure not voting for Oprah, that bitch. But yeah. Chris says you're a smart dude. I like you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Chris says he's Conan, Conan the Barbarian. Mercanoy says, can we talk about Care Bears? They were some gangster MFs. When they pulled out the Care Bear stare, they were able to smoke some dudes. They literally. Did you watch Secret Galaxy? Have you heard of? So it used to be called Toy Galaxy. Now he's renamed the YouTube channel Secret Galaxy because he talks about like toys, especially from like the 80s and 90s. But now he calls it Secret Galaxy because it's not just about toys anymore, but just about like nostalgic stuff from the 80s and 90s. And he did a whole thing about the Care Bears that I just watched yesterday. The guy's name is Dan. I forgot his name, his full name, but his first name is Dan. The name of his YouTube channel is called Secret Galaxy, and he just did a episode talking about the Care Bears, and he did a joke about them doing the Care Bear stare, and it had the guy from one of those 80s action flicks, I think from one of those Charles Bronson movies, like talking trash. And when the guy gets shot up in the movie, instead it's like the Care Bears doing the Care Bear stare, they just blast off. That was funny. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, check that out. It's funny. Chris says my first vote I ever casted was for Ross Perot. Even since then, we won it a different way and still trying to figure it out today. Go USA as our tribe, Rebel Army over Dark Side. Chris says the best Care Bear we all wanted secretly was the one with the thundercloud on his belly. So that's not Tenderheart, right? Because Tenderheart was the leader, at least back then. I think they changed it now, but Tenderheart was the leader. Uh, the one with the thundercloud. You talking about Grumpy Bear, the grumpy one. That one we all thought was the toughest. He wasn't the toughest. He was just grumpy. Yeah, you talking about the grumpy one. In no way affiliates says fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to racial slurs. Pretty much. That's why I call them people nerf herders and stuff like that. So this is Biden's mind is completely gone while Trump is running circles around him. I noticed CNN asking Trump every question they could think of to make him look bad. No, I mean, to CNN's credit, I think the questions they asked were legitimate questions. Like they had every right to ask him about the January 6th thing, and they had uh, every reason to ask him about his felony conviction. My problem with the CNN debate format was that they didn't let people linger on the questions long enough. Like I think that 2 minute format was just too short to get like any sort of like substance on any particular question. They in the next debate they need to make it where there's a longer than 2 minutes for them to delve into any sort of question because 2 minutes is just too short to get substance on some of these issues they were talking about. That was my problem with the debate format. Chris says yes through Ohio. I know. GJC says good evening. He said maybe I had low expectations, but I thought Biden did better than anyone thought he would. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It was low expectations, GJC, because like I said, everyone was basically just happy that he made it through. That shows that's what's said. Like the highest expectation of a president, the current president at that, it's not that he just make it through the debate. He should be like persuasive. So the fact that he could just make it through is such a low bar to at this stage. This is why so many people just decided not to watch. Is because like on one hand with Trump you was like, okay, let's hope he just sticks to the actual like questions. And then it was like with Biden, let's hope he can actually answer coherently and actually make it through without like nodding off asleep or something. So he did that, but that's such a low expectation. We wanted to see something better where we actually see like persuasive arguments, and we really didn't get that, and it would be too much to think that Biden could give a persuasive argument on anything. And like I said, he should have been a one-term president. Like he should have just retired with political dignity and left and let someone younger run for office. No one would have faulted him for that. I mean, we don't want Harris. Let's be completely clear about that. Pretty much, no one wants Kamala Harris to run. Yet, we wanted you know, he would there would be a lot more people running. I mean, voting for Democrat if they had someone they thought was a viable candidate. He should have just retired with grace and dignity at his age, knowing how much it's mentally taxing him. We can literally see it, right? It's like I said, he's been trying to run for office since the '80s. He finally achieved it. He should have just retired with grace. But everyone who always says they're going to be a one-term president and then decides, well, no, I'm gonna do it for 2 terms. CNN said, I mean, excuse me, J.A.C said CNN should have had an American flag in the background instead of their logo all over the place. No, you know they were gonna. I think the reason they did that is because they knew that their debate was going to be simulcasted over so many other platforms. They wanted to make sure that they got the credit for it, no matter where you saw it. So if you watched it on Fox News, if you watched it on MSNBC, if you watched it on News Nation, if you watched it on PBS, if you watched it on your local affiliate channel, whatever, like they wanted to make sure you knew that CNN is the one that was responsible for this. So, Zen says the bar is set so low for Biden. He said, I like Trump's answer to the abortion question, leaving it to the states is a good one in my opinion. Yeah, and them blaming Trump for that, how is his fault that they overturned Roe versus Wade just because he got the justices into the Supreme Court they will overturn it. The Democrats had 50 years to make Roe a federal law, and they didn't because every time they had someone in office, in the office of the president as a Democrat, they pushed it to the side. Once they got in office, and said, "Well, we got bigger things, bigger fish to fry right now." And also, they were Democratic pundits saying to push it off because they could always use this as a wedge issue to energize the base, which they were doing. So it reverted back to the states. I don't have a problem with that. But then they try to ask him, well, so now they're trying to say, well, what happens if Congress decides to just make a federal law against it? And I mean, he said he said he would veto it. So we'll see. But you know, there's like 3 dozens like you know, these women making an issue saying they're trying to control our bodies. No, there's like 3 dozen forms of birth control on the market. 3 dozen forms of it. You can pick one, or, 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 or you could not let guys bust nuts in you that you don't plan on having kids with. Just saying. No one's saying you can't have sex, but no one said you have to have guys busting nuts in you. But that's controlling their bodies, right? Telling them, hey, if you're not ready to have a baby, maybe you shouldn't let someone bust a nut in you. Or, 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 there's like 3 dozen forms of birth control in the market. Choose one. But they go from the extreme. Oh, either you, either it's abortion or there's nothing. So modern women don't want to be held accountable for their behavior. Anyway, I don't want to go on that tangent. Chris says, my problem with the debate is look closely when Biden was fumbling the camera switch. Take a look. I want to see the side by side split down the middle camera the entire debate. No, they were showing how goofy he looked between questions because Jon Stewart made fun of that on the Daily Show yesterday. Like when like Trump was responding and Biden had these crazy looks on his face. Like he just looked so dumbfounded. Like it was hilarious. Like, because Jon Stewart was like, he said, did he not know? Did they not tell him that the camera would be on him when he's not answering the question? So yeah, they did. They definitely showed it. Chris says, and forgive my conspiracy theory here, but watch Biden tap his earpiece. That was in the rules not to have. Look at debate rules that were set. I don't even know about that one, to be honest. Zen says the answer seems so simple. Don't screw around and you won't have any kids you don't want. Like I said, they can have sex, but who said you gotta get nuts busted? Like, so you gonna just let them raw dog and just cream pie you, huh? Like, like it's my body. Okay, it's your body, but that means you're supposed to take cream pies like every time. Like, I mean, even in Game of Thrones, like, you can pull out. I'm just saying. Chris said it was very obvious he was listening to something. Maybe it was Biggie. I don't know. Biggie. That would be hilarious. That would be freaking hilarious. GJ says, "Did you see Jill rallying a crowd after she looked at Joe and yelled, 'You answered every question. Good for you.' Talk to him like a 4-year old." I know, right? Did she take him out for like pizza afterwards or something? Get him a lollipop? Like, yeah, you answered every question. He's supposed to answer every question. This is a debate. Like I said, that's such a low bar to set. Like, it shouldn't be you answered every question. It should be you were being persuasive to everything they brought forward. Like, as much as I hate Obama, at least he was a at least he was coherent and persuasive. Like he, you know, all mental faculties firing. Like he inspires confidence just by being charismatic, persuasive, even if he's dead wrong on most of these issues. But whatever. um, I don't know what Dion Wilson is talking about with the clowns and NYC. Got to specify. It says I was really thinking, and by the way, guys, that's Obama on the wall, and you already know I'm not for him. So like I said, I'm not at home. So just in case someone brings that up, yes, that is him on the wall. You know that every old black person has Obama on the wall right next to Jesus and Martin Luther King. Uh, don't see Martin Luther King on the wall, but I think that is my uncles, um, who are also veterans right here. So these are my uncles over here. There's my grandfather right here, and for some reason Obama's between them. Don't ask me why. That's what old black people do. I think it was Chris Rock or one of them said. He said every black person now. He said he got on the wall. He said, "Look, baby, that Jesus, that Martin Luther King, and that Obama." Let me stop. But let me stop. But all right. Zeb says, I was really thinking Biden had an earpiece. There's no way he's as coherent as he was during that debate. I don't know. I think they gave him a B12 shot, gave him a little Monster Energy drink, say, "Get out there, Joe." I'm not mad at it. Like Jon Stewart said, if they had to give him and Trump some performance enhancing drugs so they could be firing on all fronts, go for it. uh, do, 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 do. Chris said, "Yeah, such a low bar." It really is. Like I said, the we shouldn't be expecting someone just to answer the questions. We should be expecting people to try to persuade us that they have the best position on these issues, not that they can merely answer them. That's what we expect of children. Chris says definitely a B12 shot. Yeah, right. I wouldn't be mad at it. Gave him a good bowl of Wheaties. B12 shot. Gave him a little Monster Energy drink. And we can see the cognitive decline. We saw how feisty Joe used to be back when he was VP under Obama. Like this dude, you know, he had a stronger voice. Like you hear how soft his voice has gotten now. Like he used to be way more vociferous when he was a VP under Obama. So we can see the cognitive decline. Like I remember back then, like he was talking trash about Trump when he was still VP under Obama, saying, "Man, I like to go take Trump behind the bleachers." And we was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 Joe, what you talking about taking him behind the bleachers? There's only two things you do behind the bleachers: you either fighting or you doing the other thing." It's like I don't know which one you mean, but you need to clarify that one. But yeah, remember how feisty he was like 12 years ago. So we can literally see the cognitive decline in him. And it's like he's doing himself a disservice, and the DNC is doing the country a disservice by allowing him to run. GJ said Biden did have a couple of good insults. Only one I remember was when he called Trump a sucker and a loser for saying that the military was suckers and losers. And then Trump said, "I never actually said that." He said that was just what how they reported what he said. And he was like, "No, that's." And then Biden was like, "No." He said the general actually told me you said that. He's like, "Oh, that was just a disgruntled employee because I fired him." So whatever. Yeah. So that was like the one good barb he got in. I guess he got in another one or two others, but it still wasn't persuasive. And I think it was only because I had iced coffee that I was able to stay up through most of that debate because I definitely went to sleep at the end. Since his Biden answers were kind of funny, they started to veer off the more he talked. Yeah. Chris says, "I'm not mad at all, but still didn't help." Says and CNN will cut him off. CNN was cutting them both off. Like they wanted to stick strict. So they had a 2 minute format for each question, and then they had 1 minute for a rebuttal and 1 minute for a response. And that, to me, that was just too short. Like I'd rather them ask them fewer questions in which they can go in detail than ask them a bunch of questions in which they can't go into any detail because you're not getting any substance that way. And that was my main problem with the format. Chris says maybe when he was younger or something, but it's just making us look bad because he's our leader right now. Right. And I mean, and then when you're thinking of like national security, like remember when they were when I forgot what that was like months ago when the Secret Service was like rushing him back into the beast, and like they couldn't even rush him, like they had to like take care of him like he was like their grandfather. Like that's that's scary. Like you know, so I would like a president that could like buck back at someone. Like Vladimir Zelensky, for instance. Like, I don't particularly like him, but he looks like he can beat someone up. I'm just Putin still seems like he could beat people up. Crazy Muda says, "I don't think 5 hour energy drinks more like four loco." He at least seems like he drank a few for energy and didn't know they were a hard beverage. Chris says, "Ask the military who they want. Bet it's not Biden." Oh, I already know. If Eric's still in the chat, Most Trump even said that during the debates. He said, yeah, and he was right. I mean, Biden didn't like it, and he didn't agree with Trump, but he's right. Most of the military predominantly is conservative anyway, and yes, most of them do back Trump. So he's right about that, and Trump said that. So yeah, I mean that's absolutely correct. Stroll says, "What's up, man? What's up, Strolls?" Chris says, "I actually thought the questioners would have been more vocal, and they weren't. So hats off to them, in my view." Crazy Moose says, "What I will give Biden is when his family got in that crash, he held it together and went to work the same day, but that was a long time ago." Yeah. Chris says Putin is a black belt. It's an honorary black belt. That shit doesn't count. I'm sorry. An honorary black belt is like an honorary degree. It does not count. Trump also has an honorary Taekwondo black belt. A eighth degree, I think. He has an honorary eighth degree black belt. Putin had an honorary judo black belt, and and I think an honorary either karate or taekwondo black belt as well. And I know for Putin, I think the Judo Association actually rescinded his honorary black belt. But honorary black belts don't matter for the same reason that honorary degrees don't. You don't actually earn them. They're just given out as a, you know, social nicety. Um, Chris says, but so was Reagan, and I liked him. Says, I don't hate Biden, but I will admit that he's the worst one we've had yet. I've heard one of the guys after the debate say he's doing his best, and I thought, should someone like that be president? Chris said, I didn't realize that, but yeah, you know that makes sense. Yeah. So, Carrie says, sending love from New Zealand. What's up, Carrie? Thank you. Um, Dang, I forgot what I was going to say, guys. Speaking, no, I remember. So when you were talking about worst president, so Biden brought up that American historians have said Trump has been the worst American president ever. And I'm like, once I hear that, I don't take that seriously because if you're gonna say that Trump is the worst American president, when we've literally had presidents that were slave owners and have caused Indian genocide, then then I just know they're politically biased because you're not gonna tell me that slave owning presidents were worse than Trump. You're not gonna convince me of that. Like I said, George Washington, our very first president, was a real estate mogul like Trump, but he was much worse. He stole that land after the French and Indian Wars. He was literally a landlord while still serving in office. He owned slaves, to which at the time there was a law I think in Pennsylvania somewhere that after a certain amount of time those slaves had to be released from servitude. So he would just take the slaves and move them to a new property in another state to restart the time clock, so they would still be within his servitude. And you're gonna tell me Trump was the worst president? Okay. Kennedy, everyone loves John F. Kennedy. Do people know he was having an affair with a German spy? Not to mention that he did a bunch of illegal assassination attempts on Fidel Castro, and because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, got us yay close to starting World War III. Abraham Lincoln, most people consider him like probably the best of the American presidents. He was doing stuff. He suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War, which is messed up, and jailed up to like 13,000 people who disagreed with the war or talked against military enlistment. And when he ran for office, he snuck his supporters into the elections to vote for him. And you're gonna tell me Trump is the worst man and the worst president? Nah, I don't think so. Kyra says, speaking of Russia and fighters, did you see Russian police storming Khabib Nurmagomedov's? I'm sorry if I always butcher that man's name. Sorry. A training facility in relation to terror attacks in Russia. No, I haven't heard of that. Chris said he grew weed too. Crazy Motor says, if elected, would you consider Ye the worst president ever? You talking about Kanye? It depends on what he did to be considered the worst president. Like I said, the as far as talking about the worst president ever, like I said, slave owning presidents and presidents who have enacted Indian genocide to me are a high bar to cross. It's going to be a high bar to cross to say someone is worse than presidents who own, bought, traded slaves, or committed Indian genocide. Or as much as people love FDR, he interned an entire race of people just because they just just by virtue of their nationality, the Japanese internment. So you're gonna have to meet a very high bar to say the worst president ever. And I'm sorry, Trump does not meet that metric at all. So it says this touche. Biden might not have been the worst one. Chris says against Castro. Yeah, like I said, every president has been a criminal. Every president has lied. So to call Trump the worst president to me, these historians were just being politically biased because you you're gonna convince me that Trump was the worst president. He didn't even get us in any new international conflicts. Every president since has. Biden has got us in new international conflicts. Obama got us into new conflicts. Bush got us into new conflicts. Clinton got us into new conflicts. Bush Sr. got us into new conflicts. Ronald Reagan got us into new conflicts. Trump didn't. So, and everyone act like Obama was such a great guy. Do people forget he was called the deporter in chief? Like they talk about Trump being so hard with against migrants. Do people remember what Obama was doing? Like people try to forgive him because of the whole DACA thing, forgetting like he was called the deporter in chief with what he was doing, or his drone wars he was doing. In his drone wars, he was using drones to kill civilians, and he allowed wiretaps of journalists. Ask Edward Snowden, ask Julian Assange, who just this week struck a plea deal with the U.S. to not serve any jail time after being released out of prison in Britain this week. But you're gonna say Trump is the worst president? Like I said, Obama. How the fuck did Obama win the Nobel Peace Prize and launched a drone war, killing civilians? Killing civilians. Let me say that again. Killing civilians, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Washington Post, which we all know is a very left-leaning liberal newspaper themselves, said that man was okaying um, black black ops that even Bush was against. He okayed black op missions that even Bush didn't allow. But this guy got the Nobel Peace Prize. So sorry for my rant, guys. Chris says he just wasn't good or bad. Wasn't the worst. Yeah. Chris says I liked Obama clout and ability to speak to people. Like I said, yeah, he was very, he was he was persuasive, he was charismatic, he was young, he was the first to tap into like being and social media and stuff like that. Uh, and he was an eloquent speaker. But sometimes eloquent speakers can fool you into things that are very bad. So, so I said, well, Obama's not so good. Yeah, he really wasn't. Like I said, stuff he was doing was so bad on the border, they started calling him the deporter in chief. But yet everyone wanted to give Trump issues about locking up people at the border. Like I said, he was wiretapping journalists. Edward Snowden has been in Russia for being a whistleblower for like the last, what, 16 years now? Julian Assange, who ran WikiLeaks, didn't do anything illegal. The same stuff that Julian Assange did running WikiLeaks is the same thing like the New York Times and the Washington Post and other newspaper does, where they would take the leaked information from whistleblowers and publish it. He was doing the same thing, and instead they decided to call him, you know, committing espionage and all this sort of stuff when he didn't steal any information. He was simply publishing the information leaked by whistleblowers within the government. And look how he was mistreated. I'm saying, when did we wiretap so and then they always want to claim like Trump and all these other people are against democracy. I think wiretapping out journalists, I think killing civilians, I think that is against democracy. Just saying. Chris says, but he was James kinda, if you understand. Yeah. Crazy Muda says, remember the Boondocks, Dick Ryan for Obama, Will I Am song? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was funny. and and to Aaron Magruder's credit, and first of all, shout out to Aaron Magruder. He's one of my fellow Terp alumni from University of Maryland. He actually started the Boondocks at University of Maryland as part of the campus newspaper before he took it and had it nationally syndicated. It was first a campus newspaper comic strip. He was the first one against Obama before it wasn't popular to do so. Like back when he had his criticisms of Obama, the black community was in lock, heel, and step with Obama. You couldn't say anything bad about him without being called a sellout. But Aaron Magruder was like the first one to really like call him out on a lot of stuff, and it wasn't even popular back then. So shout out to Aaron Magruder for keeping it real on that. Chris said Grant on. Thanks. Crazy Mother says everybody aunts and grandmas had a Michelle or Barack Obama clutch or handbag during this term. Well, like I said, got him on the wall, right? So this is, do you think the president actually has any say? Isn't the president closely tied to the CIA, FBI, and the military? Does that mean he's just the face? No, 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 no. So the CIA um, is under the executive office of the president. The FBI is under the DOJ, which now they want to put the DOJ under the office of the president. I don't know about that. The the Department of Defense, um, you know, typically answers to the president and stuff like that. Do they sometimes do things without answering to the president? That's beyond my pay grade to answer that. But for the most part, the president is the commander in chief, so he's both commanding the military and the intelligence community to do certain things, more or less. Now, will the FBI and some of these other intel organizations go above and beyond the president's? Yeah. Remember a little guy named Edgar J. Hoover? So, um, but that's why we have, or we're supposed to have checks and balances, and the whole role of of journalists and the media was to be the fourth estate. The so-called fourth estate was supposed to be, which meant that within our three branches of government, that the journalists would serve to keep them honest, But when we can attack our journalists and wiretap them and throw them in jail for being whistleblowers and stuff like that, then that kind of erodes the role of the fourth estate. Uh, but yeah, guys, I'm about to go. It's been almost 3 hours. I don't know exactly what I Eat Knives is talking about here, but this is not the topic. um, well, this is not the venue for the airing of such grievances. Um, but to get back to what Zed was saying, no, the president makes a lot of these calls on a lot of these things, military, the intel community, even within our economics. Like the Federal Reserve is supposed to be independent of the president, but he will appoint the chairman of the Federal Reserves and have a lot of sway over what happens in our economy. So much so that some of the information about the economy can be classified information, which is how like why should uh, why should documents on the economy be classified information? How does that fall under national security? I don't know, Zay. Maybe he should work for Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever that place is called. But yeah, guys, I'm getting hungry, so I'm about to go. I know I got a few messages. Got to check in with the wifey. Unless there's any other further comments. Did I get that right? By the way, guys, Five Nights at Freddy's. That's like the little knockoff Showbiz Pizza, Chuck E. Cheese pizza thing. My one of the first time I went to Chuck E. Cheese was when I was 5 years old, and then when I turned 6, I actually had my own party there, and got to eat a whole pizza to myself. Got my got my first He-Man toy. That shows how long ago it was. He-Man, all that sort of stuff. Then when I moved to Chicago, we didn't have Chuck E. Cheese. We had Showbiz Pizza. Then later, Chuck E. Cheese bought out Showbiz Pizza because they used to be two independent uh, restaurants. But then I think Chuck E. Cheese bought out Showbiz Pizza, or Showbiz Pizza bought out Chuck E. Cheese. I forget which one, but they became one organization. And Chuck E. Cheese back then used to look like a gangster rat. He used to have a little cigar and had a little derby on. He looked like he was about ready to shoot someone. Crazy when it says, "Do you think I whip my hair back and forth by Will Smith was a political statement?" Wait, was it supposed to be a political statement? I thought it was just supposed to be like a fun. I thought it was supposed to be just a little fun song by an untalented girl. Sorry, I didn't know it was supposed to be anything political other than just a like sort of like a little party bop type song. Oh, most of Chuck E. Cheese's are failing now. Zed, yeah. There's a whole go on after you come off this live stream. Go to YouTube and just look up Chuck E. Cheese. You're gonna see like about a hundred different videos talking about Chuck E. Cheese. But like I said, back in the '80s, that I think, and then it started in the '70s. Actually, it was thriving then. And so every kid wanted a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza. Back in the '80s. Crazy Moose says, I think it was an attempt at making a comment on Sandy Hook. Really? I don't remember that. I, and I mean, because Willow Smith was definitely not savvy enough to make any political statements when she was that age. Her mother, that crazy bitch. I don't know. She has quirky political views, but I didn't know that she would have put them in her daughter songs. Jade also had like a little rock band for a little while herself, by the way, if you guys don't remember. And unfortunately, she's from my hometown of Baltimore. She's actually from the area where I originally grew up in Baltimore when I was really little, before I moved to Chicago, called Park Heights. Um, there's a Jamaican community in Park Heights where she's from. She's part Jamaican. Her mom is, I believe, is Jamaican. So she comes from a West Indian community, which is up from that part of Baltimore called Park Heights. And yeah, it, so my nanny when I was little was Jamaican and got me interested in those foods. Zed says I feel so bad for Will, man. I hope I never end up in that predicament. I don't feel bad for Will anymore because he put that on himself. Like I said, I kind of lost empathy for him when he smacked another man who was weaker than him. Like once you just bitch slap another man who's weaker than you because you can't work out shit with your wife, you're weak. And I mean, he's a simp. And really, I think the issue is I think the real issue why he hasn't left her is because she got dirt on him. Like there's information out there right now, and there's a book being published by one of his former best friends from Philly, and someone who worked for him saying that he's gay, that he's been in a long term relationship with Dwayne Martin. I don't know, but I don't feel sorry for him. He could have left that relationship a long time ago. And living in Philly and Baltimore, is no way that I would have became an international celebrity, a rap legend, and ended up dating, much less marrying, some chick from Baltimore. Ugh. I didn't become rich and famous to marry some chicken head from Baltimore. That's disgusting. From Park Heights at that. Mm-mm. But anyway, we're getting far astray from the topic, so I'm about to end this, guys. Um, Again, I knew this it would be an interesting topic to talk about the what happened after the debate, and like I said, there's going to be several more. I'm hoping they're going to do one just on the third party candidates, because I don't think I'm going to be watching any more of the ones with Trump versus um, Biden. I'll just be catching the highlights of those unless they allow other candidates to also be a part of the debate, like RFK. And then eventually there's going to be a VP debate once Trump selects a running mate. We don't know if it's going to be Tim Scott or Vivek Ramaswamy. I know it's not going to be that woman. She messed that one up. um, eh, who else is in the running? Oh, that other black guy. I forgot his name. Um, so he, so there's like two black dudes that might be in the running. Vivek Ramaswamy. Uh, this other white guy, I can't remember his name. Sorry, but you know, but they'll still call that man racist, even though he might end up picking a VP. This black or Indian, they'll just dismiss those people as sellouts, as people on the left always do. If you don't agree with them, then you're a sellout. What's this is that Baltimore slang is something different. Yeah, we there's even a Park Hike dance. Um, and you can look that up, by the way. That is on YouTube. There's a dance called the Park Heights dance. I'm way too old to be doing that, so you won't be seeing me do it. Zen says you don't like girls from Baltimore. Absolutely not, dude. I would not date girls from Baltimore, Philly, Detroit. Those are no goes. Absolutely, like those are just no goes. Well, unless they're Asian, but that's a whole different subject. But yeah, unless they're Asian, I wouldn't date anyone from Baltimore, Philly, or Detroit, unless they're Asian. But yeah, um, No, the actually the funny thing is the last black girlfriend I actually had was from Baltimore and from Park Heights, but she was a sweetie. Sh- And because some people think because I have an Asian wife now that um I get the you know what they say, but um yeah, my last black girlfriend was a dark skinned woman, and she was from Park Heights, Baltimore, but she was also West Indian. But she was such a sweet person. Like she had none of that Baltimore vitriol in her, and I think that's partly because the ones who actually leave to go to college are the decent ones, but the ones who you know are just there are not the ones you want to date. But yeah, my last black girlfriend before I stepped out, she was a dark skinned black chick from Park Heights, Baltimore. She was West Indian. Like I think she was part Jamaican, part Haitian or Dominican as well. Um, she's a sweetie. She was even in our alumni magazine several years ago. She ended up becoming a teacher and now like an administrator in New York City. She said she was gonna move out there because she wanted me to with her as well. That didn't happen, but I wish her best. I wish her well. I think she's now engaged or married actually to a white guy. Uh, so she's doing well. But yeah, I would not. Other than her, after that, I would not date anyone from Baltimore, nor Philly, nor Detroit. And I'm sure you guys can mention other cities that you probably wouldn't as well, like I don't know, like Newark, Trenton, Gary, Indiana. Uh, I don't know, uh, East St. Louis, Milwaukee. I'm sure you can name a bunch of places. New Orleans. But yeah, anyway, so off of that, guys, if you have any other comments or questions about the debate or anything else, you can leave it in the comment section when I upload this, which will be within a few seconds. But I enjoyed the chat. Didn't have that many trolls as I expected because usually politics brings out a lot of trolls. So it actually wasn't that many, except for one ended up banning him just because he was an idiot. But c'est la vie. Um, but yeah, other than that, um, guys, take it easy. All right. And Zed says that's great. She's probably noticed all of the craziness and said, I got to get out of here. Yeah, like I said, most of the people, even from bad areas, the ones who tend to leave and go off to college tend to be the ones who are of higher value than the ones who don't go off to school. Just as you know, uh, I don't know, a matter of fact sort of thing. All right, Zed. See you. Everybody else, see you. Thanks everyone for contributing. Like I say, if you guys have any other comments, just you can leave it in the comment section, or and if you guys don't mind, definitely hit the like, subscribe, hit notifications, share. If you want to contribute to the cause, I do have a Cash App link and a Venmo link, or you can buy me a coffee. All right, but appreciate it, guys. Thank you.